Hey dudes, and welcome back to The Bants. As always, I am your host, The Bants. And once again, it's the beginning of another week, so it's time for our first What's Happening in Fashion this week, so let's just get right into it. And first up, as always, we have our headlines for the day. And for our first headline, we actually have multiple stories rolled into one. And why are they all rolled into one? Well, that's because they're all featuring everybody's favorite trash company, H&M. So what exactly has this fast fashion retailer done this time? Well, first up, in our first headline, they decided to copy some designs from the relatively unknown brand that's done by Young Lean, known as Sad Boys, and just take a couple looks at these photos and you'll tell that they obviously don't just give a fuck. And I know what you're thinking, H&M stealing designs, who would ever think they would do that? And as if they couldn't fuck up enough in just a week or two, H&M also decided to file a lawsuit against legendary seventh letter graffiti artist REVOK, and boy is this one a doozy. So to catch you up a little bit to speed on this, basically what happened is supposedly an marketing ad agency that H&M was using decided to shoot a photo campaign for the brand using some of artist REVOK's work in the background. Now, obviously he wouldn't be happy about this because who would be happy about being in an H&M campaign, really? But aside from that, he wasn't part of it, he wasn't paid for it, and so he was against it. So what does H&M do? They file a lawsuit against him, saying that because graffiti is out in the public air, it's allowed for everybody. And what? Yeah, because that's just how graffiti fucking works, I guess. Now, since then, there has been a lot of he said, she said. Supposedly, the lawsuit has been taken down. Maybe it hasn't. There's been an apology filed. Maybe there hasn't. But there is one thing for sure, and that is the art community is pissed. And as well they should be. I mean, yes, graffiti is out in the open, it's out in the public, it's not technically forever, but we have come to realize now how important it is to the arts, whether you consider it a fine art or not. I mean, just look at the recent 5 Points case that just went through, and the people that are actually getting paid out of that. This is not something to be taken lightly, and all I really gotta say to this is, fuck you, H&M, first and foremost, for not only trying to get away with this, but then on top of that, filing a lawsuit against the person that's part of it. I can't wait for him to take you to the bank and get that money he fucking deserves. And on the topic of stealing ideas and using them against other people's wishes, we now move to China, where the store Colette Forever has now opened up. Yay! So what is Colette Forever, you might ask? Well, supposedly, it's a tribute store to the now unfortunately closed boutique Colette. And supposedly, this is China we're talking about, they are selling designer goods from relatively well-known brands in the same way that Colette did. And I know what you might be thinking. If they're selling real designer goods and they're trying this like a tribute store, then what's the problem? Well, let's get into that. So first up, the only real evidence we have that these designer goods are in fact real is word of mouth from the owner. And really that doesn't say much, because that leads into my second point. This idea of a tribute store, he actually talked to Sarah Andelman, one of the co-founders of Colette, about this idea, and she told him she didn't like it and that he'd hope he'd choose another name for the store. And guess what? He said, fuck you, I'm doing it anyway. So can we really trust what this guy says? I'm betting more on the likes of no. So all I gotta say is, let's hope Colette Forever isn't actually forever. God, that is so fucking infuriating. Like, who the fuck does that? Alright, and with those fun stories out of the way, let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, Georgie showed off some of her newest paintings, and all I gotta say is, if you're a fan of floral patterns and really kind of fun and humorous typography, I would definitely check these out. Then Trevor Knapps showed off some of his newest lino cut prints, and all I gotta say is, if you're a fan of really any type of illustration, but especially texture heavy illustration, I would definitely check these out as well. And lastly, 4 artists came together, those artists being Camille Walala, Jamie Brown, Will Gates, and Pref, to make a brand new digital zine showing off some of their new art. So if you're interested in any of those artists or want to learn a little bit more, I would definitely check that out as well. Alright, and now moving on into fashion, Patta showed off their spring summer 2018 lookbook, and in all honesty, I think it's pretty decent. You know, it's really kind of a shame, really. As far as brands that started up during the golden age of streetwear and have kind of been able to continue on to this point of time, I feel like even now Patta has always been slept on, and it's really unfortunate because some of their designs are really cool, in fact. And even though I don't really like a lot of the designs here, and in all honesty, this whole lookbook in its entirety is definitely not their best work. But even so, I have to give them credit for at least trying some new things, like whether it be design ideas or use of color or use of patterns, whatever, because at least they're trying something new in this age of streetwear where everybody is trying to compete to be as similar as they possibly can be to everybody else. But with that said, I do have to say the design ideas here are at least interesting, if not fully flushed out in my opinion. And if they can find a way to definitely refine these, I can definitely see some of their newer designs in the future being just as good as anything they've ever done. So here's to the future, I guess. Then Antisocial Social Club showed off their spring summer 2018 lookbook, and oh boy, this is gonna be fun to talk about. God, what a shit fest this brand is. Like, really, I don't even know where to start with this. Like, as expected from Antisocial Social Club, the designs are just absolutely horrendous. They're just so fucking trash. I can't help but fucking smile about it. And the funniest thing about these designs, which have about as much creativity put into them as a vegetable could possibly put into them, there's actually some backstory here as well. You see, Neek, the owner of ASSC, runs the business about as well as he designs for it. So yeah, scary, right? And due to these fantastic business practices, people have either A, been receiving product very late, or B, not at all. So of course, what do? They decide to shit talk him, as they deserve to do. And so what does he do in return? This is a multiple choice question. Does he A, apologize and try and work on it, B, decide to man up and actually grow a pair and become a decent businessman, or C, decide to mock the people buying his brand on his newest product? Well, if you guess C, then congratulations, you are definitely smarter than anybody who is supporting this piece of shit. But with all that said, let's just end this with the way it should be ended. Neek, go fuck yourself. Then Bape showed off their newest indigo dyed collection, and honestly, it's pretty fantastic. You know, for as much as I've shit on Bape in recent times, I do have to say a lot of their side projects, these capsule collections they do, tend to be pretty good overall. And one that has been absolutely consistent is the indigo dyed collection, and that continues here. The choice of hues and dyes and patterns and textures of textiles really help mold this collection into something really great. And as far as this indigo collection goes, it's loud in the sense of Bape, while still being subtle to what indigo and denim is all about, and I can only give them kudos for that. It's kind of scary and sad to think how good their main line could be if they put this much time and effort into all of their clothing. Then, and this news is a little bit different for once because we're actually covering women's wear for once, but this was just interesting enough that I felt like it had to be talked about, and that's that Adidas gave Alexander Wang an opportunity at redesigning the tracksuit, and I think some of the ideas that he came up with were pretty interesting overall. Obviously, when redesigning the tracksuit, you don't really want to go too far away from its synonymous design, and he really didn't here. But even by not going too far away from it, he was still able to recreate or reimagine some designs that really make it fun and interesting and different from what you'd expect. And I really hope they give him a chance to do this for menswear too, because something like this for men's would definitely be really fun and interesting. So props to him on it, and definitely worth checking out if you haven't already seen it. And lastly, Huff came together with a new collaboration, this time with Felix the Cat, and I think it's pretty decent overall. Being one of the few characters that I really don't get tired of seeing collaborations from, Felix the Cat shows up again here, and fortunately, when he does show up, the collaborations aren't usually that bad. And here we're seeing that as well. The designs are pretty well done, they're nicely placed, they're not too oversaturated, they're playful, and that one embroidery jacket is phenomenal, to say the least. So yeah, if you do consider yourself a fan of Felix the Cat and haven't gotten enough merch so far, then here's your next place to look. Alright, and with that, let's move on to our articles for the day. And first up, we have to go back a little bit. You might remember when I was talking about the newest Supreme line, how I thought the MLK pieces were very distasteful. Well, turns out I wasn't the only one who felt that way, because High Snobiety felt like they needed to write an article explaining how Supreme has made political statements for pretty much ever, and this is just a continuation of that. And to that I say, no shit, High Snobiety. Everybody fucking knows that. The reason why people didn't like the MLK pieces isn't because they were politically charged, it's because they were poorly done, okay? It has nothing to do with fucking politics, it has to do with design choice. But getting back to the article here, they really do go into a little bit in-depth history of some of the more politically charged pieces that Supreme has done over the years. So if you find that interesting, I would definitely check this article out. Then Grail put up a very nice history of Ermenegildo Zegna, so if you're interested in a little bit of his history or some of the things that he's done over the years, I would definitely give this a read. Then GQ put out a very interesting article on how Bitcoin millionaires are starting to overlap into the streetwear market, so if you're interested in learning more about why shitty brands are becoming overpriced and killing streetwear, thank the Bitcoin millionaires and learn more about them over here. And lastly, High Snobiety put out another very in-depth article, this time on the counterfeit culture in Russia. Previously, they just did one on South Korea as well. And if you're interested in learning more about the inner workings of that and how it all goes down, definitely give this one a check out as well. Alright guys, and with that, we've reached the end of our first whiff for the week. As always, I hope you guys have enjoyed. And also, as always, if you guys want to check out a couple more photos from the lookbooks or read a couple of the articles I talked about, I've linked everything in the description down below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching these videos and supporting the channel. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to talk fashion in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'm always willing to talk fashion. And with that guys, thank you very much again. Have a good couple of days, and as always, until next time.